Hi, everybody. We're doing the Roseanne podcast. Well, you already know all that. Anyway, hi. And I'm very excited today. I have a great guest. I can't wait to delve into the recesses and depths of his genius and his mind. And that's cool. I have my special coffee cup that says they, which I got at one of those stores that sells coffee cups. It said mom, dad, and they, which I love. Everybody's into they. But I was they before the LGBTQCIA, ICM, whatever. You know,
Co-opted.
yeah, they kind of hijacked the words of dissociation of people who are dissociative. They sort of stole all that from us, and I was they before any of them MFers came into talking about pronouns, because I have several pronouns and I am a they. I'm not a singleton.
And that's because you have had multiple personality disorder, right?
Yeah, dissociative identity disorder. That's what they changed the legal name of it for, I guess, for insurance purposes. Anyway, I can't wait to introduce a talented and brave journalist and writer, as well as performer. And now I say a friend. You need no introduction. James O'Keefe.
Hello, everyone.
Well, I met you at the TPUSA or something like that.
Yes.
Turning Point.
Yeah.
You came in through the door, and you just had done something with your musical, and I watched it, and I was like, man, that could go to Broadway. It's like Book of Mormon. I thought it was really good.
It was like a musical about my experience, what I was going through. Yeah.
It was funny and very informative and entertaining.
Thank you.
And of course, that's whenever somebody who is known for something and then you go try to do something more or
Yeah.
express your talent in a bigger way, that's when they come and, cut you off.
Right. That's a good point. Yeah. They when I did Oklahoma, the comments were, "Get back to work," and it was like, well, if people say they feel entitled to me, you must be the slave to do this particular thing. But I always say, if I wasn't wired the way that you saw, if I didn't have that performer within me, there never would have been a Project Veritas.
Right. How old were you when you knew you were different or a rebel?
I would say my earliest insight into myself, where I knew that I was different, was when I was in second grade, but I didn't know how. And then I would say maybe in high school.
What happened in second grade to make you think that?
I was an extreme introvert, and when all the kids played kickball, I was alone. I didn't go play kickball with them. I felt isolated from other people.
Were you afraid to join in? Or did you just feel like you didn't want to, or you were afraid to?
Both.
Yeah, I had that too.
I would. There was I remember indelible in my hippocampus. Remember that? Remember that phrase from the hearings? I don't know why that popped into my head. Indelible in the hippocampus. I was in second grade, and there was a bicycle rack, and I would just tiptoe back and forth on the bicycle rack during recess while all the other kids were doing all the other things. And then one of the kids came over and said, "Why don't you join us?" I'm like, I'm all right. And I don't know what caused me to behave that way, but I was extremely introverted.
What were you mean you were tiptoeing around?
There was like a little, those old metal bicycle racks, and it was sort of dented and old, and I would walk on the top of it. It was just not very high, and just sort of back and forth, balance myself on it. That was the earliest memory. And then when I was 15,
I did that too. Come to think of it,
Oh, yeah.
when I was off by myself, I was always walking on a curb or something like that,
Right.
trying to go foot in
by
front of
foot.
foot for balance.
Yeah.
Probably practicing for drunk driving later. But I mean, did you ever go to journalism school or any of that?
No,
That's what's so good. And it's like got a real working class bent to it, which is why I like you and why I followed you. But I wanted to ask you, the first time I saw any of your work was like right after Roger and Me by Michael Moore. It was, and I heard you talking about how you were influenced by Michael Moore and that specific movie, right?
Yeah, yes, there was a couple influences. I remember seeing that. I actually thought Roger and Me was the one from like 1989 or 19. It was one of his first ones. I thought that was. I actually thought that was one of his only well done ones. I thought that was really. There was a scene with the rabbit. There's a scene from that movie where it's like cinema verite. He's showing this woman. I think she's skinning a rabbit or something to put food on the table.
Yeah.
I thought it was actually a good piece of journalism, and there were a number of other influences, but I don't like how Michael Moore would later edit the tapes. I thought he took some people out of context. I know he confronted Charlton Heston.
He took him way out of context.
Right. I didn't think that was right or fair.
No,
and I try not to do that. But yeah, he was one of a few different influences. I mean, it's all smorgasbord of influence. Like Mike Wallace, who did this before I was born. 60 Minutes used to do this way, way, way back when. This group called the Yes Men, who did this sort of agitprop things where they would embarrass people by putting them in awkward situations. It was, a whole different cadre of influences.
But what was your resolve? Because you obviously became a rebel with a cause.
Right.
So what was the cause that you adopted? Because you didn't want to humiliate working class people.
No.
You didn't want to sneer at them or say, "Aren't they stupid and deplorable?"
No, those are the means. All the techniques were a means to an end of. I think it was fairness, and justice and balance and illumination, revealing about things, because I felt as a boy. Perhaps that things aren't presented as they ought to be, that things are rarely as they seem, and seldom as they should be.
Yeah, that's a good one.
But of course, at the time, I could not articulate this the way I am now. I was just driven to do something, and I remember it was very uncomfortable. I mean, one of the first memories I have of actually being a rebel was I was 18 and I'm 19. I was one of these professors in my history department at Rutgers, which is the State University of New Jersey. The only state university not called New Jersey State. It's called Rutgers. He had like a door just covered in propaganda. I mean, just top to bottom. And I thought, well, that's weird. Wouldn't that make a student feel uncomfortable if he didn't agree politically? So I, influenced by these people, I made a certificate called Best Decorated communist best decorated door, and I printed it out, and I put a camera, and I knocked on his door. I said, "Sir, I'm here to present you with you've won the award. Your door is more decorated with propaganda than any other door. Keep a straight face and everything." And my heart's beating, and I'm sweating bullets. I'm scared. This is not a comfortable thing to do, but it's an artistic thing to do. It's exposing it.
Did you think it was Did you think it was going to be funny? I mean, why did you do it? Because you were like livid, or you were driven, or you were like F you, or I mean, what was the driving force?
Indignation isn't the drive. I think it's a split between this sort of artistic desire to show something, to create something. So it's like almost like maybe as you do a bit, or you're writing a thing. It's like that. I want to make sure I do that.
I get it.
It's also guerrilla theater, because
exactly.
You don't know what's going to happen, but whatever happens is always a bit.
Yeah.
And what the guy actually did, now some of these professors would, tell me to F off and spit in my face. But this guy actually stood up. I thought he was going to clock me in the face. And he goes, and he holds my certificate, and he goes, "This is the proudest achievement of my academic career." And he actually played along, and I played along, and he played along, and I played along. And this is like 2004, before YouTube existed. I'm like 19 years old. And I'm having this back and forth with this history professor who's saying, "I have never received an accreditation of this magnitude." I was like, I couldn't have written that.
Well, he was joking, right?
Of course. I mean, of course, I
Or
assume.
was he serious?
I'm assuming he was joking.
I bet he
I
wasn't.
bet he was joking.
What if he wasn't?
Uh, well, maybe that tells us something.
I bet he was dead serious.
I forgot the guy's name. It was the history department at Rutgers. Their video may exist on the internet somewhere. Yeah, that was one of the first, even before Lucky
Well,
Charms.
who saw it? Who saw that?
So this is before YouTube. So
Yeah.
I didn't go to journalism school. I was a philosophy major, and
Oh,
I had a column, and my column was not renewed at the daily paper because I wrote some things that they probably didn't want me to write. So I started my own magazine, monthly print publication.
what age?
19.
Wow.
Yeah, and I learned how to do like Adobe PageMaker and Adobe InDesign. I did it all myself. I had a little staff, raised a tiny amount of money, a few $100 to just print out a few thousand copies, print glossy colored copies, and I'd put them in the mailboxes of the professors. So it was just mischievous.
It is guerrilla theater.
It is.
It's like that bus in the 60s. What were they, the Merry Pranksters? If they would have had cameras, that's what they would have done. You know, Ken Kesey and all of them. in the
I'm not
60s.
familiar with Ken Kesey.
Oh, the Merry Pranksters. They lived in a hippie bus in San Francisco and took a lot of LSD and tried to just mess with people's heads to break them out of their programming. Of course, it didn't work much. It gave birth to Charles Manson. But, you know, everything goes bad when humans are involved. But, well, what about your pride in the things you've exposed? What about that Pfizer guy? That was the most brilliant piece of
That too.
cinema
That was-
or whatever you want to call it I've ever
Yeah.
seen in my
That-
life.
that was-
You exposed the devil himself right there and calmly.
That was experience. That was talent and experience. That was that. We should talk about that for a minute. That was perhaps the most riveting thing ever caught
on camera.
on camera. I mean, that was
It was,
it looked
for
like
sure.
a sitcom. It looked like King of Queens. It was like this, but it also looked too bizarre to be something that you wrote. And that guy went through as I said to you last night, that guy went through the 5 stages of grief in about 2 minutes. I got in there, and if you haven't seen this,
Did
most
he
of
not
you-
know who you were?
Well, I identified myself to him immediately. I said, I'm a journalist. My name's James O'Keefe. I'm Roger. And he backs up, bangs into the chair. What is going on here? Like, what is going on? And then I say, this is an undercover investigation. It's like the Catch a Predator thing. This is an undercover investigation. You're caught on tape. He's like, what are you doing? And then I show him the iPad of him saying the virus is in from Wuhan. At Pfizer, we're mutating it. We are horrible. This is a horrible thing. We keep secrets. And he goes, I'm literally a liar. And
I know.
that's what he says. And I'm thinking, I'm literally a liar. I was trying to impress a gay guy on a date. And I said, but I'm supposed to believe everything you're telling me right now? So he goes through the next stage of grief. And then he says, you effed up. You really did. Almost like threatening me for
Yeah.
having done this. Now, going back to your question, is this talent? A lot of this is when I got started, my heart's pounding, I'm scared, I'm sweating, but my nerves are just steady now. In fact, I'm calmer in that environment than in anyone.
I get
That's
you.
just what I do.
Yeah.
That's
It's
prob-
resolved.
It's resolve. It's experience. It's
See, like when I got canceled and I was talking to Louis C.K. and we made a deal, we'll come back, but we have to come back more fierce than ever.
More offensive.
resilient.
More
Are you
offensive.
saying resilient? Or
Offensive.
more offensive?
Yeah, because you got to kick it in even harder because they already took you down. You got to come back fiercer and go, no,
Almost like heedless. You just have to keep double down.
double down.
Double down. Yeah.
Because they're doubling down. Look how they did. I was mad when they canceled me that nobody stuck up for me. Some people did in private, but I'd say, would you say something in public? Oh, hell no, I'm not gonna. I knew, not Disney, no. And I forget where I'm going with this. Where am I going with this, Jake?
You were talking about your experience being canceled.
Oh, yeah.
You guys obviously have that in common. I'd like to talk to
Yeah,
James
I
about
was
that.
pissed that nobody stuck up for me. That's
Right.
what I was going to say.
Nobody did?
No, and I said, "Oh my God, nobody's sticking up for me." You know, when when somebody in the government calls the network to get you fired because you pissed you.
Now, that's
you-
a story. I'd
you
love to be a fly on that
insulted-
wall.
You insulted a Democrat candidate, and the president of the network had plans to run as a Democratic candidate, as Oprah said on her interview of him, Robert Iger. And so I upset the Democrat Party, and his first call was to Valerie Jarrett and Michelle Obama too, and Susan Rice over at Netflix, and they're like, so they in 20 minutes. But when the government calls the network, I mean, that's just complete fascism. And we are going to talk about fascism, but we'll come back to it.
I'd love to see a
Because-
recording of that call. I would love to have heard.
See,
an
that's what I was going to
interaction.
ask you. I wished I could go back in time and be a fly on the wall there, or dress as somebody delivering sandwiches to hear those calls.
right,
So
yes.
I was like, I want James O'Keefe to tell me how I can go undercover, because it should be exposed of why they would choose to destroy their number one star and their number one show, which they hadn't had for decades. Finally, they were making money, so they destroyed themselves. And how come their stockholders never asked about it? And they canceled the show before even one advertiser pulled out, for a favor to the Democrat Party, because I liked Trump, because Trump talked about jobs.
Right. Right. I mean, that's the story. That conversation behind closed doors, that pressure that was put on. That's what I do. That's what people need to see.
Yeah, don't
They
they?
need to see the reality of how the system really works. But what I take from what you just said is nobody stood up for you.
No,
And
except for Monique.
Monique. But a lot of people aren't bad per se.
No, they're scared.
They're scared, and they got to get that paycheck. And I bet you a lot of people inside Disney, there's good people that work for Disney, but they're scared and they need that paycheck.
Yeah.
And we all see that.
Somebody said that about Hitler's Germany. They said, well, they signed the German people, they signed their death and the death of their country and their souls away for a paycheck and a pension.
Paycheck and a pension. Kyle Seraphin at the FBI said that to me when he blew the whistle on something. He said, the paycheck and the pension is what leads to Holocausts.
That's right.
That's probably the most disheartening thing, for me. Because one thing to take arrows from these people like Jarrett and Obama. I mean, you're strong. You're used to that. But to get arrows from in the back, it's different.
It is.
hits differently from good people. I've seen it in my life, and that's been its own journey for me. It made me evaluate core assumptions about myself and other people. Which I didn't know human nature was like that, because I operated the assumption that other people
We're like you.
were like me.
Yeah, but like I told you, when talent is a gift from God, and so talent is like the Chinese say, the nail that stands up must be hammered down. And talent is the thing that makes the nail stand up. So when you are talented, the one thing about being talented and able to generate money and move money around the hands is you get a lot of moths attracted to you, a lot of narcissistic people who don't have any talent, but they kind of like live through yours and try to usurp it and try to, they try to sponge off it and think it's theirs.
You've experienced that.
Yeah, they think it's theirs.
Did you know that they were like that when they first?
That they were vampires?
Yeah.
Yeah, I knew they were vampires, always. Since I was a little girl, I knew that vampires existed.
You knew that they were like that, and you just sort of were careful and judicious with trusting them, and you just knew that they were that way.
Well,
You're asking her about the cast on Roseanne or people
Just
in
in
general?
general.
Okay.
well, I knew I had to watch out for them because I knew that most people are not like me. I always knew that. Growing up Jewish in Salt Lake City, you know, more and more your eyes are open that you're not around normal human beings. They don't have the same values as you, and they're. It's just about money. It's just about money.
That's what I'm realizing. I think I'm realizing that like literally right now. I don't think I ever understood that.
Oh, really?
No, but the world's also changed since I was a boy. I mean, Lord knows it's different now than it was in the 1990s. Things have progressed. I mean, people weren't chopping off private parts as much back then. Things are different. So they're both things. I'm learning the way the world is, but I'm also learning. Like I asked RFK this question when I was with him a few weeks ago. I said, was it worse now or when your uncle was president? Like the J. Edgar Hoover was the head of the FBI, and they say he was blackmailing people, right? So that was known.
Yeah.
And RFK said it's more insidious today. He said it's more insidious today at the FBI. Also, a congressman said the same thing to me. He said the FBI is worse than the CIA, much more insidious now, especially. But I'm learning about this money thing, and I'm realizing that money is security, right? Money is shelter. Money is survival. And
money also buys your addiction.
Yeah.
That's really what it is. It's an addictive society where everybody's addicted to something. Everybody's obsessed with something and has to buy something because, you know, they're just empty inside.
Yeah. And emptier than they used to be.
Yeah. And people who work with and around talent, most of those people I found are there to destroy talent. That's why I like...
But why is that the case?
Because talent needs to trust people. So you tend to trust people who seem charismatic. The same reason everybody gets molested as a kid. You trust charismatic people rather than really go out of your way to check people's references.
Right.
If you like them right away because they're charismatic, you're like, I like that guy.
Right.
You don't think. You don't protect yourself. You're groomed not to.
Right.
And, you know, I look at Britney Spears. I mean, she's groomed to pick the wrong people. And how are you going to get over that? Till you take your power back, which you can't do when you're completely brainwashed. And American society is completely brainwashed, and you know that. You help to wake people up, but it's hard, huh?
It's working.
Yeah,
it's working. But I want to go back to something you just said, because I was walking here in Texas in the meadows today, and I had this. It occurred to me this epiphany about the money thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope your audience understands what I'm about to say. But as I went through what I was going through a few months ago, a very painful thing, and I'm better off now, and we'll talk about the future here shortly. But
no, but they stole your whole company out from under you, stabbed you in the back, and now they're suing you.
Correct. So when I was going
through kind of
like
a Disney deal there.
Yeah. I've exposed Disney too. I did the Jeff Epstein story. Amy Robach, who's the woman on Good Morning America, on a hot mic during a commercial break. This is owned by Disney. She said, "Disney, everyone, they told us not to do the Epstein thing," and she's caught saying this, and ABC responded. So I'm going after the best of them, the most powerful of them.
You think that's who took you down?
I don't have any evidence to suggest it. All I have is circumstantial evidence. It's plausible in light of the circumstances that someone somewhere was weaponizing certain things, but I don't have any direct evidence to support that.
What about the Pfizer guy that said, you really fucked
You really
up.
effed up. You really did.
Wasn't it right
That's
after
on camera.
that?
I mean, you have to make that decision for yourself, looking at things. People are in the lawsuit. They just sued me a few days ago. One of the things they said in the lawsuit was that I'm not pushing back against people like you and other interviewers who say that Pfizer was involved. I need to be refuting that. It's like, I don't have any evidence to suggest it happened, and I don't know if it didn't happen. I don't know what's going on. None of this makes any actual sense, is what I've said.
It doesn't.
For a few days after that story.
Why do they have to destroy their own cash cow?
But
Why do they not care about money? Why do they care about propaganda and not money? For the first time in the history of the world, a corporation doesn't care about money. What?
Let me go back to what I was going to say about what I've learned is that I remember as a leader, because you made a really astute point that talent tends to attract moth-like people or whatever we don't call them. I've heard the metaphor like psychic vampires. I've heard that.
Yeah, that is what it is.
Psychic,
Not a metaphor.
I mean, not a metaphor. I mean,
No.
if you're a star, if you're of any height, you will usually attract star effers and psychic vampires and hangers-on and these sorts of people. But
you mostly attract people who want to put you in your place. You know what's wrong with you, little girl? Everybody just says yes to you and bows to you. And, well, no, they don't. Are you kidding me? Everybody's trying to backbite me, but that's what they say. And I'm here to put you in your place. They all say that.
I've heard that.
They all say that.
I've heard that. I've seen, without mentioning names, in my life, people project onto you everything that they are.
Yeah, they do.
And they accuse you of everything that they're guilty of. It's almost like they want to because if you're good, they want to make you bad. That your very existence is an act of rebellion against who they are.
That's right.
And you have to be like insanely strong because it'll make a reasonable man question his own perception of reality.
Yeah, well,
it's happened to me.
It's called gaslighting.
Gaslighting, precisely. And it shakes you to your core, and it traumatizes you. And you got to heal from it, and you got to move forward. But when I was sitting in my conference room some months ago, I think it was late last year, I had this epiphany. Maybe it was from God, and it was this thought experiment. And I said, "How many people here? Let's say there's 75 people work for me, something like that. More if you include lawyers and contractors. How many people here, if someone came to them and said, 'I will give you,' pick your number. $2 million, $10 million, $20 million. And no one will ever know that you got it. Just a thought experiment now, I was thinking. And the only thing you have to do is to stop doing what you're doing. I will give you whatever you want. And the only thing you have to do is to stop exposing corruption. Stop pursuing this mission. How many people would take that bet?
99.99%.
Okay, but in my line of work, you can't have that.
Right.
Like the people that are with me right now, I mean, the guy that you met earlier today, the pastor gentleman, the guy I introduced you on the phone, the undercover journalist, who shall not be mentioned by name, these people would not take that bet. They wouldn't do it.
That's great.
And then I had to realize, how do I even evaluate? How do you even test for that? You can't ask someone, "Oh, I would never do that. I would never." You can't ask them a question in a job interview, right? They'll just say, "Yes, I won't take the bet." And I had that realization some months ago, just sitting there. So in many ways, this is all a blessing, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Helps
Maybe
me.
we needed to get knocked down like that to rebuild back to a more sane and realistic.
Because those people get it. Those people do. You're right. Those people do see that you have talent. Those people are not the gaslighters.
Yeah.
They're not the moths. They're people who are actually really appreciative, and I can tell that it's genuine. I'm not talking about people like, in the industry or in the politics. I'm talking about like some guy at a diner at a rest stop or at a restaurant. You know.
They say like, "Hey, you connected a few dots for me," which is
Yes.
great because it's like that's what I want to do is like help people to see what's going on so that we can stop it. What do you think about Trump getting indicted? Are you just blown away or what?
This just happened as of this filming or this recording. This just happened very late last night, and I haven't read up on all the analysis. I just saw the headline, but it's apparently under the Espionage Act, the 1917 passed under Woodrow Wilson Espionage Act, which I don't, on a cursory analysis, I don't think should be applied here. I mean, first of all, it seems to be an unequal application of justice. They're going after this guy on any possible conceivable theory, when every president probably is guilty of this sin, if not more so than Trump. I think it's in Florida, federal court in Florida. I'm not sure that a jury is going to convict him of this in Florida. But
It's what is it, the 11th court?
the 11th Circuit, the federal court in Miami. This was reporters were gathering in Miami, and I myself have been targeted, by the federal Department of Justice, the Biden Department of Justice. Merrick Garland, the Attorney General, is I think it's a horrible thing for the country. And
It is.
and we don't want to go.
But it's a good thing, too, though, because people can see that it is an unequal application of justice because, I mean, just as Joe Biden is exposed for taking a $5 million bribe from, the Ukraine to affect Ukrainian legislation, and as soon as that's exposed, then they go after Trump. It's like they use Trump to fill the news cycle to keep the heat off of their crimes.
Yes,
But
they do.
how did they convince? I mean, they just must be blackmailing everybody. That must be what Epstein Island was for, is to keep people who work in the government silent and complicit.
That's a story that I want to do. You
That's
asked,
a great
You
story.
mentioned, what are the next stories? One of the next stories, I can't tell you what the literal next story will be, and I don't want but don't tell the world.
I won't.
It's that blackmail thing. The leverage they put on people. They've tried to do this with me. They've generally failed because I live pretty clean. I'm not perfect, but I live pretty clean. And they had all my emails and depositions and lawsuits because in their mind's eye, they're thinking, oh, I know, we'll just go through O'Keefe's phone. And then we'll be able to find something.
Yeah.
Remember, the FBI sees my phones. And we'll be able to find something damaging on him that we can then leverage to corrupt him, turn him. That's how these people do.
Yeah, that is.
Because in their own lives, they're dirty and
Yeah,
they're
that's
corrupt
right.
and they're twisted.
But they're all making money from side deals that aren't legal.
That too. And I was always focused on so I think the next story is that how they blackmail and leverage people in Congress.
Yeah, that's good. That's real
That's
good.
a big story. And I've seen it, but I haven't. Let me rephrase. I've seen people behave, and I know that they're being threatened. And
Yeah, me too.
Because I
can
could see them turn in a minute.
Uh-huh.
I'm sure you've seen that. And I'm like, what happened to you? Just like a few days ago, you were a different human being.
Yeah.
And they act
got the
like
phone call.
they act like they're just cognitive dissonance. And
Yeah.
what the heck was it? Are you demonically possessed, or did someone threaten you? Man, what the hell's gotten into you? But I don't have the evidence of the blackmail.
What'd you think of the Supreme Court upholding the Voting Rights Act?
I haven't taken a detailed look at that to make an informed opinion.
They came down against ballot harvesting, which is cool. And Texas, right after that, said, oh, now we can institute voter ID, which was not possible before this ruling.
Right.
So we're not hearing the real story. All we hear is that Republicans were trying to keep black people from voting.
But you can't even have these conversations.
No.
I do stories on voter ID laws years ago, and I went in there undercover, and I went into the Attorney General's. This is Eric Holder, Obama's Attorney General, into where he votes. And I went under there I went undercover. My guy did. He's a white 23-year-old white guy, and he walks up to Eric Holder's voting booth and he says, "Hey, you guys have Eric Holder's ballot?" They thought colloquially, "Oh, he's just asking for his own ballot," and they offered him Eric Holder's ballot to vote in that election. Eric Holder, then a 63-year-old African American guy with a mustache. And my guys, and this was filmed.
My God.
This is an extraordinary moment, extraordinary piece of television, because the guy goes, "Here you go, Mr. Holder," and it demonstrates how easy it is to commit fraud. So Eric Holder, who's against voter ID, then implemented a policy in his precinct that voter ID was necessary because his ballot wasn't stolen.
Wow.
So rules for me, not for thee.
Yeah, it's so crooked, isn't it?
But that's how the gaslighting and you're exposing it. and they hate you so much because you're exposing it. Not debating policy or whining. You got to make them live up to their own book of rules. That's what I learned in my
They
life.
definitely don't do that.
They don't. They don't want to. They can't live up to their own. They should live up to their own book of rules, but they can't. And that's how you can get them. That's I think how. I mean, can you shame the devil? Some people say no, but the closest you can come to shaming the devil is doing that with that voter ID stuff that we did, and that actually changed some laws that people, really changed their minds. I had one professor say, "Gee, I didn't think voter fraud was possible until I saw your video. You changed people's minds."
What do you think is going to happen in the 24 election? Do you think we're going to have one?
I wouldn't be surprised if aliens descended to Earth next week. All bets are off. I can't. Predictions are all. The world is so irrational that
Isn't it crazy?
it's literally a roulette table. There's no rhyme or reason. I'm serious. You might as well. It's a crapshoot. Total crapshoot. RFK could be president for all I know.
I know. I thought about that. Too.
Plausible, just as plausible as Biden, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Or Trump in 2015. No one thought that was going to happen.
And the Trump DA, the New York DA thing, I think helped Trump immensely.
Yeah, it seems to have. I don't think just the more they go after him, the more ridiculous it is.
This is a different level.
And they sued him in Justice Thomas's court. And so, of course, it's just all theater.
But this is a new Rubicon to indict, for a federal court to indict a president. We have not yet been here before.
But don't you think Trump's kind of like, come on, get me, come on, get me.
He takes more shit from,
When you compare your shit to Trump.
Not as bad as him.
I know that's a lot
but
what kept me strong, too, as I go, look at Trump.
Well, it's terrifying because I'm like, that's the path. Is that the path I'm headed towards? But not as much shit as Trump takes, and he's still standing. And I think that people live vicariously through that because, like, even the New York what Trump did in New York City was not a felony. That wasn't a felony, but they went after him for it, and people think, well, that could be me.
Yeah,
that could be me.
Well, they changed it. They changed the law.
Yeah, they went and changed all the laws in the election
to go after
to
target a man. And the Attorney General,
that's terrifying.
The Attorney General of New York, Letitia James is her name, ran on a platform.
I'll get Trump.
I'm running for office to get him.
Yeah,
which is so contrary to every basic understanding of American principles.
That's not taking a vow to uphold the Constitution.
No, that's Soviet. That's something you'd see in a third world
Stalinist
country. And if we can't unite around that, if we can't figure out as American, by the way, I think that most people agree that's wrong in principle.
I think so too.
Like even in my deal, the feds raided me, and over the President Biden's daughter had a diary. The feds raided my home to try to get my phones, and the ACLU, which is a liberal group, defended me. So people were like, "That's crazy. We shouldn't be doing that." I think for Letitia James to run for office, I'm going to find a crime on this guy. That's just nutty.
Isn't it?
And as artists, you and I have to figure out how to wake people up to that. I don't think politics is going to wake people up. Politics is going to put people in their respective camps.
Can I say something? I think, and I've wanted to talk about this the entire time, there's cancel culture. You guys have both been victims of it, technically, but what happened with Tucker, what happened with you two, this is unprecedented. Talk about a Rubicon as well. You guys weren't just fired. You were ousted from a company you built from the ground up. Mm-hmm. You were ousted as the #1 star on television. Tucker was #1 on cable news and was ousted. So the three of you haven't just been fired. You've actually been deplatformed and kicked out by friends, family, coworkers, the government in your case. So this, to answer your question, you say, how are we going to wake it up? I think you guys already have, just by being victims of it, because it's insane.
Yeah, people. Right. Yeah, I mean, look at Tucker getting 100 million views on his podcast that are on Twitter.
Of course he did. He's the biggest thing. And Fox News, I mean, I texted him right after he was fired or whatever, saying, you're going to be bigger than ever now. I said the same thing to you, and I'm going to tell you the same thing, James. Like, it's basically the shackles are off.
When did that change? There was a point in history. It was somewhat recently.
That's what I'm asking. I don't know.
I think 2017. Your year though was a big one. I've heard. From
I think me getting fired.
You were one
I
of the
think,
first.
You were like the test case.
Yeah, I think I was the test case, and you know, I had 28 between 22 and 28 million viewers. That went down to 3 million. They didn't give a damn. But
Well, I'm sorry. That's the other thing. You said earlier. In
they
this
say
episode,
everybody wherever I go, even liberals, say to me, "You got singled out where they let all these other people like just skate on it."
Oh, and then they wrote articles where you were like mentioning the same sentences like Harvey Weinstein and people that like sexually assaulted somebody
Yeah,
because of a
they
tweet. But
put me in there.
they
And calling me a racist.
one thing you said earlier, and I want to talk about, you said, when did corporations stop caring about money? Because even just from a straight business standpoint, right? They
Yeah.
went from, let's say, 15 million views. Now, I think the Connors, which I hate to even say that word, is like around 2 or 3.
Yeah.
So they're losing millions and millions of dollars.
They don't care about money. That's what I was going to say.
That is a weird
And
thing.
Veritas
were
is
talking
done,
about-
right?
We were talking about corporatism and corporate fascism and how corporations, when corporations and government get together, that is the very definition of fascism.
Yeah. It's a very bizarre.
And people think corporations are democratic. Come on.
No, they're getting more consolidation of ownership. Like you look at the people who invest all the money in Pfizer and Fox, the overlap is so. Have you seen? I mean, I tweeted this out. It's almost like the same exact companies own the same exact stake. So it's true. There's a relationship there, and it's bizarre. You had 28 million viewers, and it went down to 3 million, and they didn't. It's like they don't think about the end game. They don't care about where that's headed. They didn't game that out fully.
No.
They put something other principle ahead of their own success, which was to tear down talent. Bang down the nail that stood up. So it's narcissistic rage? It's
Well,
demonic? I mean, what is this?
Think about it. With you and Tucker, I mean, I don't think it's a coincidence the three of you are considered, within the same political sphere currently. And the people that do the cancellations, the people that run these corporations, are on the other side of the spectrum. So
Spectrum's the right word.
yeah, but like, that's not a coincidence that
Well,
conservatives.
they're the establishment, and
Thank
we're
you.
at punk rock.
I mean, have you seen?
Don't you think we're punk rock?
I agree.
Or do you need to fix your?
Nope, I got it. I agree. I think we're punk rock, and the more that I think of myself that way, the more successful I'm going to be.
Me
Absolutely.
too.
Politics is, listen, generally speaking, most people in politics are narcissists, and they're about tearing down the other person to get ahead. That's not what you do. You don't tear down other people. You create. You write. You speak. You said we're creators. We're builders.
Right.
Artists.
Right.
That's not what people in politics don't create anything in Washington D.C.
They just steal public money and put it in private pockets.
Yeah.
While all the time going, hey, you're a racist. Look at your neighbor there. He's a racist, and you need to start fighting with him.
They pick winners and losers.
Yeah, they do.
And it's a zero-sum game to them. Someone wins and someone loses. They have to tear down the other person for them to get ahead,
Yeah.
rather than build something. Is it easier to tear something down to build? I've heard it said that it's easier to tear something down. I've also heard it said a builder can build faster than a destroyer can destroy.
I've heard that too. I
So
love that.
I don't know. I tend to be more of an optimist because in my life I've been through a lot of shit and I was able to build through that. And they were just looking at, trying to imitate me. They would do the same to you. But
Well, they're trying to steal your Gestalt. They're trying to feed off it and use it, hijack it. They're never trying to complement it.
support it. Never want to
Yeah,
support it. No. But I someone once said to me years ago, a builder can build faster
I
than a
love
destroyer
that.
can destroy. And I'd like to believe that. I'd like to
I
believe
think
that.
America is going through some stuff right now. I think that all the bad is exposing itself, and then will shortly crumble and blow away. And I think that the government of, by, and for the people is not going to perish from the earth, as Abraham Lincoln said. And I think that it's gathering itself up and growing heart and will in the people, and that they're realizing that maybe they were lax for a while. But especially my generation, the grandparents, were like, hey, you know, we can play a few less golf games and serve our community
Right.
and our children a little bit more
Yeah.
without being too horribly uncomfortable. I think people are wanting to do good more than ever before because they are afraid and they see that things have taken a wrong turn and they have to be corrected by us. Right? The majority.
I believe that's very true, and we have to believe that. We have to.
What's the biggest thing we could do to wake everybody up? Like if me and you was going to do something.
I think like what your son said a moment ago, which is very true, what is happening is waking people up.
Yeah.
And you are a part of you were a part of that. Tucker's a part of that. You woke people up, and then they're activated, and now they're ready to go. So they're wound up like a top. Okay, what do I do, James O'Keefe?
What should they do?
And I get thousands of messages a day. You know, literally, I'm in your home, and I'm receiving these messages. How can I help? And my admonition is putting it back on them. So they want me to tell them what to do. I say, what can you do? Tell me what you think you can do. You got to start somewhere.
Yeah, you got to think.
You gotta
and
think.
Vision it. Just get it, the picture
Well,
in your mind.
Most people don't have vision. Most people don't really that's not their thing. They say, give it a try. What do you think you can do? Where do you live? I live in Utah. Okay, where do you live in Utah? I live here. Okay, have you ever gone to a school board meeting? I didn't know that I could. Well, yes, you can. You put it back on, like OMG, what I'm trying to do is decentralize it so that there's thousands of these people that sign up. They all want to help me. I mean, I get hundreds of messages a day from people who want to work with me and for me. They don't want to get paid. So I
think you're right telling people to go to the school boards.
Yeah.
Because that is the first congregation of power in our country,
Yeah.
the local school board. And that's where it seems to be the genesis of everything. And I like that you said that.
Yeah, in that particular case, they expressed interest in education. Sometimes they expressed interest in the VA or Medicaid fraud or the teachers' unions or investment firms. Like I had a whole bunch of Wall Street guys come to me. What I'm trying to do is they all want me to go investigate. That's what those are. James, we need you. I said, well, I can't be in 10,000 places today. So what we have to do is empower those people to do something similar to what I have done.
You mean become citizen journalists?
Yes.
I love that idea.
Yeah, empowering people to go do it themselves. And any whatever the issue is, it doesn't matter. I think we should have cameras everywhere.
I do too. And
You know?
empower people to just go film it, go witness
Yeah.
it and film it and put it, what do they do? Send it to you?
Well,
or just post it anywhere?
I mean, Twitter is a platform,
Yeah.
at least for the time being, that is because Elon took it over. I was banned on there for 2 years, and then Elon bought it, and then I was put on in December, right before the Pfizer story. And that Pfizer story got 50 million views.
Yeah.
So I think OMG, we can curate it, produce it. In some regards, I have to, because journalism, you have to tell a story, you have to ask for comment, there's all these things. But I'm happy to do that. I have a team to do that. It's much easier for me to do that than go collect it as well. So if you got a few hundred or a few dozen people sending me information, that's my vision. I'm happy to be the people's editor. I'm happy to help them, but they got to help themselves.
Yeah.
They got to go out there and give it a shot. And I think while you're saying people, the money, is money the root of all evil? I think people are waking up and realizing that they're following their conscience more than they ever have. That's what I see happening in this country.
I think so too, which is really good.
Yeah.
I mean, it took a lot, but hopefully it continues. And Well, it was great talking with you. Is there anything you'd like to say before we close?
Thank you for having me on. O'KeefeMediaGroup.com is the website, O'KeefeMediaGroup.com. You can sign up to be a journalist and subscribe, support our mission.
How does that work? Don't people sign up and then if they pass some vetting, you actually send them like a camera and
Yeah,
teach them how?
you
Can
could-
you explain that a little bit?
Genius.
If you go on
Yeah.
the website, O'KeefeMediaGroup.com, OMG, which is a double pun because it's my name. It also means oh my god, which because you see these tapes like oh my god, it's like what the Pfizer guy said. Oh my god, I'm literally a liar.
I loved when he jumped the camera and
I-
tried to get the tape.
He was on the floor on my ankles and like a little child, spoiled child. And it's a triple pun because OMG, they won't be able to censor that because everyone uses it all around the world.
That's
You can
very
go to the website, o'keefemediagroup.com, and there's a drop-down menu, and you can sign up to be a journalist. And we've had like 1,200 people sign up, so we have this database of citizens now. And we do basic vetting, but most people are able to sign up and get a camera and go expose.
And do they get to keep the camera? Or they return it when the story's done, or it just depends upon the
It depends
person?
upon the situation, but in some cases, even citizens have bought their own camera online. We have really good ones if you have a really good idea or really good story. The cameras are not cheap that we ship you; they're over $500. They're special cameras, and we white label them. And there was a girl in Minnesota.
I'd like to add a contribution to that fund. I'd like to empower everybody to start citizenship.
You want to donate to OMG? I would like that. I'll talk to you about
and
that.
send out like especially old ladies. You got a lot of time on your hands to
Yeah.
go go get a story.
Well, the old ladies always say, "Well, if I was 30 years
Yeah.
younger," I said, "You don't need to tell me that. You can do this."
Yeah, because they have the wisdom to know what's really going on and to go after it. They know everything's stupid
Yeah.
and funny.
Yeah.
So do it, Grandma and Grandpa.
Yeah. So you can do that on the website. Thank you for offering to help and stay tuned because I think bigger things are ahead. I've been untethered.
I think so too. You're free, like I told you. God took you out of Egypt. You might have wandered in the desert for a while, but you're coming into the promised land. Full creative freedom.
My foot's on the
both of you.
path.
It is on the path.
I'm not yet walking down that path fully, but my foot is on the path.
Yes, it is, and 2 more steps.
2 more
You're right
steps,
there.
one step at a time.
I want to ask one more thing. I know you guys are wrapping up, but I keep wanting to talk about when you say, "Don't these people care about money? These corporations care about money." So, the question I have for both of you is,
Well, that's like Bud Light, Target, Kohl's.
well,
no,
have you
they
seen
don't care
have
about
you seen
money.
the BlackRock CEO? I have a video. Have you seen what he said?
What did he
Can I
say?
play it for you guys? This is recent.
Well, BlackRock, is that Larry Fink?
Yeah, watch this.
That guy's Fink.
Behaviors are going to have to change, and this is one thing we're asking companies. You have to force behaviors, and at BlackRock we are forcing behaviors. What we are doing internally is if you don't achieve these levels of impact, your compensation could be impacted, okay? You have to force behaviors. And if you don't force behaviors, whether it's gender or race or just any way you want to say the composition of your team, you're going to be impacted.
What the
Now-
hell does that mean?
Well,
Yeah.
that's what I want to
I
ask
have
you
so
guys.
many questions.
Well, it seems like, right, that there is a larger agenda at play that doesn't have to do with money, that doesn't have to do with corporate profits. In fact, Target's willing to blow 13 billion. Bud Light, we know all the stuff. You guys, ABC, Disney. So if it's not money, what else is it? And why is it always on one side, one political spectrum,
Power.
one narrative? Power. But
Unfettered power.
but why is it the corporations that are pushing this sort of woke ideology? And what you really get out of that
Fascism.
video, if you watch it the way I did, and you guys probably agree, forcing behavior, he's basically doing corporate fascism,
Right.
corporate bribery, terrorism. I'm not saying what happened to you, James. I'm just saying, the timing is suspicious. You run
He's
a story on
forcing
Pfizer,
behavior.
you're out. So there are powerful corporations at play that are pushing an agenda that's different than you and Tucker and a lot of other people that have been deplatformed. So it's not about money. So my question to both of you before we wrap up is, what is it? What is it about? Why are they so concerned with this narrative? Because it's got to be nefarious. It's not, I don't believe for a second it's to bring people up and people of color. I don't buy that shit for a second. It doesn't feel like
They don't
that.
care about gay people or black people or anything.
Absolutely. So what do they care about?
Power. They care about their perversions and their degeneracy caused by their love of unfettered power. And it does corrupt, absolutely. And they are corrupt. And, you know, you just have to look at the UN, that they're all tied in with that. And the UN is the most corrupt, abysmal beast on the face of the earth.
Next to the FBI. Of course.
No, the UN is based on Lucifer. So, I mean, they're Luciferians. That's all they care about. And everything that is about.
How does pushing woke agenda lead to Luciferian
Because
Mecca?
Satan or Lucifer is the illuminated one that they all worship. Marx himself worshipped Lucifer. Lucifer is their god. They're religious. People don't understand that. They care about their religion more than they do money. I mean, they're better than us in that, but their religion is a bloodletting cult, and you know, it doesn't like people like us.
I think it's power. I think it's power, and there's so many things I want to say, but I'm not going to. Because
I say them for you.
no,
Yeah,
well, I
I'll
mean,
send
it's
some.
factual things I've seen in my life. A million. I could tell you 500 stories, and I'm trying to get.
Don't you think it's satanic?
Well, I wanna hear
Well,
what
I
he
mean,
has to say.
there's. I mean, I'm a believer in God, and I've dealt with atheists, and I've seen, you know, their love. There's certainly a love of power, and an envy. And envy is the root of a lot of evil in the world. Envy is the root of a lot of socialism and communism.
That's true.
In the Soviet Union, it was envy, I believe, that drove people. And in your whole discussion about being an artist and them trying to bang down the nail, a lot of that's envy.
That's true.
And they wanted to be you. They wanted to tear you down because they could not be you. And they eventually worked to replace you. That's what they did with me. People wanted to be me, but nobody can be me.
Yeah.
Everyone has their own person. And I've seen it, and I think that I'm going to be working on stories that help answer your question.
That's
and
great.
you know what? We don't have all the answers yet, nor should we speculate. But what I do know is Roseanne's right. It's power, it's envy, it's greed, it's a lack of integrity, it's a lack of morality. Newsmen 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years ago, probably more than 30 years ago, before Diane Sawyer's time, Primetime Live is when things stopped. They actually had bosses with balls that would go do this stuff and spend the money on the investigative.
Spotlight.
I mean, you know, Wallace way back when in the 70s. That's gone.
Yeah.
Doing
Yeah,
the right thing costs too much. It costs too dearly.
Yes, it does.
And and you have to have really these Wall Street people. I mean, you have to have people who have really strong constitution and values and good leadership and boundaries. And where do you find men like that today? So you have a lack of that, and that leads to this.
we do have a lack of that.
You know?
Yeah, it's just
my answer.
It's just weird to me that movement that they're doing gives them more power, because maybe I'm archaic. I would think money is power. So if you're corporations and you're making a shit ton of money, now you have power. But if you're willing to give up money, then there's got to be something else they value more than money.
But that's only because money's pretty well fiat and worthless. If money was really still worth something, they wouldn't be doing
Well, when I look
that.
at a transaction, I think as a reporter, I think who stands to gain.
Right.
So,
But you mean financially, who stands to gain?
well, let me put it to you this way: if someone wanted to take out James O'Keefe, who stands to gain from James O'Keefe being removed, or Tucker Carlson being removed? Well, a number of people stand to gain.
Yeah.
So think about it that way. It's not just the bottom line, and that it's a larger bottom line. So we don't have all these answers yet, but you know what? I believe these answers will come to light in due time.
I like that you're training people to replace you in case you do get off.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's a
Cerberus.
smart thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like, even if they take you out, there's a million more
They can't.
people.
They can take out one man, but they can't take out an army of people. That's what scares the hell out of them.
Yeah, or
Yeah,
an
that's
idea.
good.
Like Gladiator with Russell Crowe, and
Yeah.
the emperor is trying to, but the people are behind the gladiator. The people, Vox Populi, the people. That's what they're scared of, the grassroots, aren't they?
Yeah, they hate that. They are horrified of that.
Horrified of that.
But so that's probably the worst sin we could commit is to empower the grassroots.
They even call them bots. Like all the comments right now are supportive of me. They say, "Oh, they're all robots." They don't actually want to acknowledge that they're real people. That's some evil stuff.
Yeah, it is. But the way they use language is double speak.
Double think. Yeah.
Yeah, double think and double speak.
Double speak, double think.
So if we got the decoder ring to reverse it all, we would know and be very firm in knowing that we are totally winning.
We are winning.
Yeah,
You're
we are
right.
winning.
They try to minimize the people and the people that support you, all your viewers and everything. Oh, they don't matter. They're nothing. They double think. That's exactly right. Double think out of George Orwell's 1984, which was the year I was born.
Wow.
1984. June 28, 19, I'll be 39 in 2 weeks. And that book should be reread every year by everyone.
Yeah, it should.
I agree. I have to say,
I just want to close in saying that it was wonderful to have you as a guest in my home and to hang out with you and to, share ideas with you. It was wonderful.
Thank you.
You're
Likewise.
welcome.
Likewise.
Thank you very much.
yeah, thank you, James.
The word imitation on labels across the nation was real.
I know that a lot of Americans are concerned with rising inflation rates, with the banks collapsing, with China taking over, with Biden being a complete criminal. You're probably not feeling secure in your investments and your future, and you're not wrong to be scared. I highly suggest that you look into taking whatever retirement you have, whatever money you have aside, whatever you're thinking about doing, don't keep it in the bank, because $100,000 today that you've saved, that you feel good about, in 10 years is going to be worth about $50,000 or so. The smartest thing you can do is invest in precious metals, gold and silver. It is smart. People have been telling you this. Your grandfather probably told you this. I'm going to tell you right now to go to bh-pm.com. That's Beverly Hills Precious Metals. Sign up a free consultation. Let them know Roseanne sent you. And if you are interested and you are smart, you will think very, very strongly about getting your money out of the corrupt banking system and away from the corrupt stock market, and invest in your future in a safe way, which is precious metals.
The word imitation on labels across the nation was real has become